Hey, 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 everybody. I'll be right with you. How you doing, Lunar? How you doing? Hey, Eli, how you doing? What's going on? Got a few more minutes, and then we'll go live, live, live. So you want to hear the latest from YouTube? I got a copyright claim from my D Live notifications because somebody subscribed to me on D Live while I was live streaming. I got a copyright claim, and it's not even from me. Crazy, right? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. So yeah, a little bit crazy, you know, ridiculous, ridiculous, but whatever. So what's going on today? Any new news? I haven't heard anything. Today's topic is about spirit keeping. Dun dun dun. Gotta have the dun dun dun, you know. Me and Lil Red were discussing it yesterday, and she's like, "You should talk about it." So I said, "Okay, I'll talk about it." So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Make sure I got everything up and running because I always forget something. I always forget one or two things. We got that going. We got that going. Hey, Haley, how you doing, hon? What is going on? All right, we can hide that. Dun 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 dun. Very cool, very cool. Yeah, I saw you went live. I'm so sorry I didn't get to jump in there. I right before I go live, I try to get everything done. I get nervous and I get, all that good stuff. So usually I just right before live, I go down stairs and go outside for a bit, just relax, all that good stuff. Cool. Okay. I will catch you one of these days, I swear. All right, let's go ahead and switch it over to the big screen. Dun dun dun. So yeah, so like I said earlier, lovely YouTube decided to give me a copyright claim on a DLive notification. Yeah, so which don't matter. It's not like I do this for money anyway. I do it because I want to share my insight and get your guys' opinion on different things and stuff like that. I don't do it for the money. I don't do it. It's not like I'm monetized anyway. Um, even though, so you know what I mean? It I do it because I have a passion for it and I love talking to you guys. Sure, definitely. Just make sure it's a good one, Haley. Don't get me where I'm like, Of course, that'll work too. People will be like, "Who the hell is that?" You ever notice? You ever notice that's when my screen freezes up when I'm like, "Nah, it don't bother me. I don't care." It is what it is. It happens for a reason, so. Ooh, you got something up your sleeve? Ooh. So yeah, me and Little Red were talking about this a little bit last or yesterday during my live stream because that stream went haywire. Um, I did one reading. I totally forgot to change the title. I totally forgot to send out the right tweet. So yeah, yesterday's coffee and cards was basically, which was still a good time. We had a lot of discussion about different things and such. So it was a good time anyway. You know. So yeah, nothing wants to work right. I tell you. I tell you. It was definitely my Monday yesterday. So today we were talking, discussing a little bit yesterday, me and Lil Red, about spirit keeping and stuff like that, and what spirit keeping is, and how you get involved with it, and just something that some people do. And I don't know why there's double messages over on my D Live, so let's go ahead and delete that. All right, so to get started, let me make sure everything's running right. It looks like it is, so we'll go ahead and get started. So, what spirit keeping is now, even though I've dealt with different things throughout my life, throughout oh, I meant to open that up. I was trying to find different things on the subject matter and everything, and I never heard of it being called spirit keeping. I've heard of it different. Okay, Haley, if you want to go ahead and ask your question, go ahead. You're more than welcome. You're always more than welcome to ask questions in here. So spirit keeping is basically, I thought it was one thing, but apparently it's another. Um, it, Now, if you've heard of binding spirits to jewelry or anything like that, it's kind of like that, but it's apparently a whole thing. And I had never, I mean, I have companion spirits. I have jewelry that, sure, you can open your third eye. Definitely. Definitely. That's a thing. Definitely. That's how people astral project or have out of body experiences and everything is through their third eye. Or when you if you've ever heard of remote viewing, that's usually done through your third eye. Yeah, it's sort of like a chakra. It is a chakra. Sure. So spirit keeping is basically, like I said, I have some jewelry that has spirits in them. I have one that's a jinn. I have one that, well, I have two that are a fairy. Hey, Lunar, how you doing, hon? Um, I have one that is oh, what are they called? Half human, half goat, I think it is. Yeah, definitely, Haley. excuse me, when we talk about like, anything astral, working with astral projection or remote viewing or anything like that, that's done through your third eye, which is right here. It's actually your pineal gland and working with that. And what makes it so difficult to open up and everything is because a lot of times growing up, there's fluoride everywhere. So you get the fluoride buildup on your pineal gland. And that's just, like I said, from drinking water, from using, um, it builds up it builds up on our pineal gland. So it's very hard to open up and break that free. But once you do, it's a cool experience. It's a very cool experience. And it can be scary, but it's definitely possible. Oh, cool, Eli. Very cool. So, spirit keeping. Apparently there's different spirit keepers out there. The two are defining classification of spirit keepers are companion and community. These There are pros and cons to each classification, and I'm going to read about this because of the fact that I'm not uh I'm not up to date about it. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't want to get anything wrong, especially if somebody's really interested. Now this comes from Creepy Hollows, which they're the only ones that I've actually, I mean, I know there are other spirit keepers and seller of items that have spirits in it. Okay, Haley. Um so to me they're like the pros of this, and I don't want to say anything wrong. Do you know what I mean? So I'm going to go ahead and read this. And they said there are pros and cons to each classification. You may start out as one classification and change during your spirit keeping journey. There isn't a right or wrong. There is only what is right to you. And that's so true. That is so very true. When it's your path, you are the keeper of your path. So don't ever let anybody tell you if you go down a different way or you're doing something different from somebody else and they come along and say, "Oh, you're doing it wrong." No, you're not. If it feels right to you, I'm very passionate when it comes to that. If it feels right to you, then you're on your right path. You know what I mean? Companion spirit keepers are those who keep their spirit family small. They only adopt a few spirits once in a while, and they take the time to individually bond with each spirit. Now, when we're talking about spirits, we're not talking about ghosts or anything like that. We're talking about um, more on an astral level, more of an elemental, more of a higher up. You know what I mean? Those kind of things. So just keep that in mind. They create close friendships and tight bonds with their spirits. They usually know greater details about the lives of their spirits before they died and their lives on the spiritual realm. Companion spirit keepers usually do not branch out as far in the spirit world and therefore do not have the same vast exposure to many different types of spirits and the unique gifts. As community spirit keepers, they also do not usually have the same range of power as community. I think they made a mistake, as companion spirit keepers. They do not usually have the same range of power as community spirit keepers. Most companion spirit keepers have spirits that are gifted in specific areas of their life and therefore have focused view as a keeper. They have small family atmosphere. Community spirit keepers are those who have large spirit families. They adopt many spirits, usually of various races, and promote a community social atmosphere for interaction between spirits in the community and the keeper. There are usually very little spirits cannot help them with, as a community spirit keeper tends to keep a vast variety of spirit companions. They have a broader community of spirits to give them social atmosphere. That is more like having a giant family of friends. They have a group of spirits who can be tasked for large efforts, and their spirits community is usually based in active as spirits befriend each other in large number, and they have community as usually busy and active as spirits. Whoops, sorry. Hold on a minute. They have a group of spirits who can be tasked for large efforts, and their spirit community is usually busy and active as spirits befriend each other in large number, and they have vast resources compared to a companion spirit keeper. They do not get to know all of their spirit companions on a personal basis as companion spirit keepers do, but they do usually have spirits in their community to get to know well. They have a large family atmosphere with their spirits. So basically, oh no, Lunar, that's not good. Welcome back, though. That definitely bites. So, companion spirits keepers, they basically have smaller families where bigger, the community spirits have the big family. So, let's see what else they got. So, basically, what it is, hold on a minute. Let's see, spirit keeping, a difficult path. Something that isn't discussed very often is how hard the path can be in spirit keeping in many, many times, or many, many different ways, and with new challenges cropping up all the time. Potentially on the surface, it looks like it should be a pathway to success, to have an arsenal of companions with abilities that humans can only dream about, ready to help you and guide you. And in many different ways, it can be. But there's a lot of struggle in between that isn't always talked about. There's a concept of it entirely. It's a niche in the spiritual world. In a world where you can expect everyone to be open-minded because everyone claims to be, you still may find often face up against people who scoff and laugh at the concept. You may have to keep that part of your life entirely secret as well, and that can be very draining. Oh, thank you, Lunar. There's always fighting, and anybody who's had to like keep their life, secret in any way knows how draining that is. It's very draining. Hold on one second. I'm going to turn my cloud bud off. I'm so sick of it. And it is off. Then why are they going off? Okay. There we go. All right. So there's likely even more. Okay, there's a figuring out of what type of beginning you want to mesh with, or that you will mesh with well, and figuring out how to recognize a calling and try to learn communicate and no doubt and suspicion and sometimes fear as well. There's likely even more that you had that everyone is on a different path, and every path is different. Every experience is different, and that in itself can be stressful. I can't tell you the number of times I've talked to people who were at their wits' end trying to communicate with their spirits, putting insane amounts of stress on themselves, and all because someone else, a friend, someone they'd known on a forum, another keeper they read about, can do these things. It's hard to see someone else have something you want, but it's horrible to try and live with that pressure. Not to mention putting that sort of pressure on yourself is pretty much a death sentence in communication. Clamps you right down. Nothing can get in no matter what or how much it wants to. Doubt, too. It's a killer in this world, but it's hard to stay away from, isn't it? It's so easy to be the person who tells someone, just don't doubt yourself. The moment doubt creeps in, you shut yourself off to the experience. nearly impossible to be the person who has to put it into practice. Your mind wanders. You start wondering if it's even real. Then you have a smug practitioner tell you, just avoid doubt. Sure, lady, easy peasy. Not. Fear does the same kind of thing as doubt. But how can you just not be scared? That's kind of against the primal human nature and would be asking an awful lot of someone not to be scared when fear creeps in. All of these things can create a vicious circle, and one of the lot of people one that a lot of people get trapped in. It makes what should be a wonderful path and a wonderful calling sometimes horrible. Sometimes this world becomes a weight that pushes you down instead of lifts you up, which we've all been there, you know? But that's okay. It really is. We've all been there where we want to go out and tell the world something, and then that doubt or fear creeps in, and it just doesn't happen. Start by recognize when you're Start by recognizing when you're feeling more upset and stressed by this path than happy. Just be honest with yourself that maybe you are feeling overwhelmed by everything. By letting yourself feel that, by admitting the truth of your situation, you start to alleviate the pressure. And that goes with a lot of things. Okay? That goes with a lot of things in your life. Let yourself feel. Let yourself let go of things. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I said, I went through my whole life. Was depressed and had anxiety. My whole life, and I was always the one that sat there and was like, "Oh, I'm fine. Nothing's wrong." Go to the doctors. Nothing's wrong. I'm good. Because at that point I was good. But it's the other points that I never brought up. So I always try to hide it, right? And I'm always telling them, fighting with myself. Thank you, Lunar. I appreciate it. So the, the day that I sat there and was like, you know what? Yes, I have depression. Yes, I have anxiety. And I was telling this to myself, I should have been telling this to from the beginning. And I sat there and told myself, you know what? It's okay. It's who you are. It's a part of who you are. You have your bad days and you have your good days, and that's okay. We forget to tell ourselves that it's okay. You know what I mean? So it's little things like that that we take for granted that we don't do to ourselves. You know what I mean? And so anyway, getting back to that. By letting yourself feel that, by admitting the truth of your situation, you start alleviate the pressure. The more you try and insist you aren't feeling that way, the more pressure you feel. So just admit it, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with feeling that way. Next, try and isolate what's causing you the most stress. This can be just about anything from being unsure about a new companion you brought home to wanting more companions that you can afford, to not being able to communicate the way you want, to worrying that you aren't spending enough time with your companion. Spoiler, your spirits don't care how much time you do or don't spend with them. They have eternity stretched ahead of them. Their entire lifespan of a human is a drop in the bucket. So a few days, a few years, a few decades, if not speaking to them directly, it's not a big deal. It can be anything else as well, not just what I've listed above. Anything. Write it down. Doesn't have to be in a journal. It can be on the back of a receipt from last Christmas that's jammed in your pocket. And then you look at it. Decide if there's anything you can do to make it easier. No stress though. Simple solutions only. Examples of simple solutions can be to Stop comparing yourself to others, to simply not worry as much, or try a new method of communication just for fun, to ask for help from a practitioner you trust, to give things some time and decide later. Just really simple things, and give yourself permission to only care about the simple solutions. Now, I think that human brain doesn't always do simple effectively, and that you think that you hold on, and that you can think of a simple solution and definitively swear that you'll stick to it. But that doesn't stop your mind racing a million miles an hour and turning the simple solution into something bigger. And that's one of my problems. I'm the whole, you know, in my life, the mole has turned into the mountain. You know what I mean? So I'm big with turning molehills into mountains. This is fear and doubt and uncertainty. They spiral out of control, often without you doing anything about it. It just happens. So when that happens, open your mind, or when your mind starts buzzing and working you up the building into a mountain again, let it. No, seriously, let it. Let it fly off the handle until you start to calm down naturally. Because if you try and stop it when it gets going, well, you tried catching a mosquito in a dark room. It doesn't work that way. Kind of the same levels of difficulty. And yes, I'm sure some people are awesome at catching mosquitoes in dark rooms. Once you start to calm down naturally, you continue with working towards the more simple solution. This way, you aren't fighting yourself. You aren't fighting the natural way your mind works in times of stress. You aren't censoring yourself. You're not putting even more pressure on yourself. Just let it happen. And when it passes, go back to what you were doing before. And that's the biggest thing. And then this, I mean, this is about, spirit companions and stuff like that. But yet, it also works in life too, which I think is pretty cool. This isn't easy. None of this is. I won't try and tell you that this world and this path is all roses and happiness in all time. And I won't try and make you believe that the solution to help yourself is easy either. The path is about dedication. It's about expanding your mind and your world. It's knowing that your path is going to completely and utterly different to be someone else, it's going to be different from someone else's. That every spirit, every person, and every experience is unique. You will hit some stumbling blocks. You will sometimes have to censor your conversation around people who either don't believe or you just don't want to tell. And that's hard. It's really hard. I know. Ask my husband because he's like, oh, well, Missy's a witch. He loves telling everybody that, which is nothing wrong with that. It's like my kids. My kids did the same thing. Um, but, what are you going to do? Um, so you'll have million moments of doubts, a million moments of uncertainty, and a million moments of despair. But this path is worth the walk. It's worth the work. It's worth everything you have to face because no one can duplicate your experiences. This path is something that is truly yours, and this path is what you make of it. What are you going to make of yours? And I just loved that simple little thing. Let me see. So when it comes to spirit keeping, let's go ahead and discuss what it is. Well, where'd my thingy go? Well, that's weird. I had it up here. Now where the hell did it go? It's not it. Okay, the history of spirit keeping. The history is not to be confused with the history of summoning live entities. That is a completely different history. This history is of spirit keeping. Spirit keeping is the sense of how you keep spirits today, is nothing as it was even 120 years ago. Modern day spirit keeping is the byproduct of the marriage between spirit conjuration and paratechnologies. Spirit keeping is in its origin is quite different. Welcome back, Lunar. um, yeah, I know. I don't know if my notifications are going out. I have no clue. It's been crazy. I don't know, to be honest with you. Uh, my notifications have been acting really weird. Even my Twitter, it's crazy. So let's see. Spirit keeping in its origin is quite different. While those who are considered sages, psychics, and medicine men would contact spirits for information, they are often sought for counsel through specific rituals performed to gain information for a specific person or for personal awareness. Oftentimes, the person who has the ability to conjure the spirits was the only one allowed to converse with the spirit. And this person coming forward to ask for guidance or to ask a service from spirit, which would not be allowed. The person asking for it would not be allowed to speak to them. Hey Vegas, how you doing? Eli. The act of keeping spirits was shared amongst the civilized and non-civilized countries and cultures. The very core and beginning of spirit keeping was keeping one's own ancestors. The act of conjuring and binding to a vessel as a permanent channel between the keeper and the spirit is not practiced at this time. In ancient times, well, in the early 20th century, there was a little time for frivolity. The main focus of any human life was survival. Spare time was something not known to many, as you only had daylight hours to effectively work in, and it took hard work to keep alive and keep your family alive. There was no grocery store. You had to work for your own land for food, hunt for your own food, and be able to trade something for valuable for food. Blah, blah, blah. The only time you could claim as your own typically was at night before sleep, or if your religion allotted for it certain days of the week, where you have to have it, where yours, let's try that again, certain days of the week were yours to have a day of rest. Suffice to say, in modern times, the ability to allow one's mind to wander due to lack of immediate survival needs has created what is now known as modern day spirit keeping. Good to hear, Vegas girl. Good to hear. There was a clear progression as humans developed technology to help them live a better life and life and live an easier life. The more time they had for a hobby and self-interest was the more spirituality blossomed and took over new forms. This is a light outline of key aspects and core actions of spirit keeping during various ages, and how the presence of more time allotted for greater exploration of existence into the physical and spiritual worlds in harmony. So ancient keeping is the act of calling, conjuring, and summoning spirits that have been around as long as humans have been dying. Excuse me, there are many ancient practices related to death, in which many include calling upon the spirits of the recently departed. By nature, when someone you love is lost, you want to keep them around you in any form. This idea was no different in ancient times, and calling upon the spirit of the lost loved ones to have them guide you and help you from the beyond was part of many funeral and post-funeral practices. While they did not keep their spirits bound to a vessel, people would make amulets, charms, small statue, and other physical objects that were attributed to or were in memory of the person lost and used the object as a physical focus to communicate with their ancestor. The belief being that the object itself, having made in honor of the lost person, would serve as a natural portal to that person. There was no conjuration involved, simply the act of summoning their presence by request. And we've all done that. We've all done that. We've called to our loved ones. I called to my daddy. I've called to my mom. You know, so it's no different from today. You know, now we just hold. Back then they didn't have pictures and stuff like that. So now, a lot of times we just hold pictures and you know talk to them that way. But it's that personal bond with that thing. Whether it be a picture, whether it be a piece of jewelry they had, whatever it was, it's that personal bond. Um, the act of calling or summoning verbally was something passed by mouth from generation to generation, as vast majority. Oh, my bad, I missed a spot here. Spirits of those past would be called upon guidance to help decision making, to ease pain and suffering, and to help other family members they knew were dying to cross over peacefully. The spirits were not, though, thought to live day to day with the person, but to come and go as needed and called upon. The act of calling or summoning verbally was something passed by mouth from generation to generation, and a vast majority of the people in the world could not read or write. Schooling for the average person, and not only for the select chosen few, is something new to the civilized world in the last 75 years. Prior to the 20th century, the ability for the majority of the world to read or write was non existent. Therefore, written conjurations for spirits were typically religious, spiritual in nature, were kept by the leaders of the respective religions, and only used by those select few for religious purposes. The average person who called out for spirit did so verbally and through telepathy. Right, yeah, exactly, Vegas. Exactly. As with the subsequent ages of humanity, in ancient times many were known to call upon the spirits for guidance, wisdom, decision making, victory, and personal gains. Even those like Cleopatra were known to call for help if of not only ancestral and immortal guides, but other entities as well in times when important decisions, personal development, or protection were needed. In the Middle Age keeping, the large development became the possibility of asking the spirits to guide people in times of healing, victory in battle, and utilizing the commanding power of spirits to exact immediate and direct results for a specific situation. The world has begun to expand in ways it has not previously thought. Through occupation and wars exist for long as people created small civilizations and populations, the technology of human warfare grew, and thirst for occupation by various governments expanded. So did the rallying cry for all possible participants to tip the scales in one way or another. Seeking the counsel of the dead heroes, ancestral warriors, and undead armies saw an influx among already standing requests to immortals, gods and goddesses, as did the immortals. Did I just say mortals? I'm sorry. As did the request of the spirits to providing healing powers from across the beyond, as the spreading of fatal or disfiguring disease began to plague civilizations or a large population where physical cleanliness and hygiene did not exist. Therefore, disease mutated into proportions never matched before. The need for spirits to come and offering healing power or help those dying to pass over more mercifully became increasingly apparent. In all cases, spirits would be summoned to aid the person and given tokens or offerings in exchange for their assistance. but not were not considered a day-to-day friend. Okay, Vegas. No problem. Hurry back. Renaissance era keeping. An awakening of knowing the connection between the spiritual body and the physical body came to light during this period. Those who worked with spirits of ancestors began to work with them in a way of understanding their own selves. Even though you live in your own body, most people felt and still feel this way even to this day that they do not know themselves. They do not know why they are here and why they have to die. What is after death? But they can do this in this life and life and other life spirit curiosities. It was an age of awakening to the possibilities that spirits, those who we ask guidance from in dire and life impacting situations, could also provide us more insight to this world that exists beyond this one. And there is an overlap to be discovered. During this time, many spirit requests became about possibilities of knowing themselves, a beginning interest in the possibility of past life exploration started during this time as well, on a greater scale than it had been induced previously, and people wanted to know what existed within themselves and beyond themselves. So this all started, back in the Renaissance and everything. And Lunar, when you're here, I definitely want your ideas on this, on how you feel after we're done. Hey, Ron, how you doing, hon? Um, about all this whole thing, if you don't mind. Early versions of modern day seances began to take place, and through they are crude and non standard in action, they were the first step in a group of curious persons' desire enlightenment to take action and to learn more about what existed beyond. This was the first time you saw people summoning spirits not for a specific purpose other than to learn more from the spirits, and though they did not keep them, they were calling on them to learn more about what existed beyond this life, and to receive general thoughts and guidance. In some cases, would try to contact the same spirit again at a later interaction for further clarification or information. Seances would be fully developed into what you see today, or wouldn't be fully developed into what you see until the late 17th and early 18th centuries. Welcome back, Vegas. Okay, Ron. This era's largest development became those who would call upon the new extinct or nearly extinct spirits of creatures who had powers and abilities that were sought after when they were alive, such as calling upon a healing power of the phoenix for those sick and dying, or the moral fortitude of a unicorn for those who needed help with temptation, or the protection of a gargoyle in times of dire needs. However, these summons were limited to the person's knowledge of those beings from their own culture or their own education. There was no internet. There was no widely spread newspaper or encyclopedia to educate the masses. The majority could not read or write, and most never strayed farther than 20 miles from where they were born. Therefore, the ability to summon the aid of a spirit of the extinct or nearly extinct race of being was limited to their local knowledge. The breadth of conjurings would not be known for hundreds of years in the future. Victoria keeping, or Victoria era keeping. With the revival of the spiritual embodiment, the Victorian era saw a new level of divination. Wow. And spirit communication. Seances became the secret pleasure of many middle to high income families. And as they would host secret parties to call upon the spirits of the ancestors, historical figures, celebrities of the day, and spirits they believed to be in their home, even in a strong religious world during the Victorian era, the curiosity of knowing what spirits from beyond had to say was a great curiosity to be stifled by religious rhetorics. The vast majority of spiritual literature in the act of summoning spirits during this time were to summon humans, ancestors, and historical figures. The spiritual world would have become entranced contacting the great historical figures of their eras: Cleopatra, Caesar, Da Vinci, Henry VIII, Plato, Shakespeare, Socrates, especially Napoleon and Marie Antoinette, as their most recent and very controversial lives were scandalous and exciting. The possibility of connecting to these people and learning about them became the new forbidden and fun thing to do. It was the first time human preoccupation with learning from a spirit for sake of fun and personal enjoyment really took root in the spiritual community. They were not contacting the spirits for a specific task or need, but simply to find out more about them. Towards the end of the 19th century, the greatest development was the beginnings of magic and spiritual conjuring taking shape. It was a small step, but it was a step that would take hold towards the mid to end of 20th century for spirit keeping. As the magical community merged with the spiritual community in a common goal, both sides explored the possibilities, and while some of the both sides stood true to the core of their communities and did not pursue the marriage of magic and spirits, some experimented with the possibilities of the two coexisting in a new development, non-religious format. And that brings us to modern day keeping. What you participate in now is something new in the last 20 years. The breadth of the race of the spirits which can be called upon for day-to-day enjoyment as a companion and a friend develops from conjurings that we used previously for specific needs and reasons. The conjuring range from ancient to Victorian areas spanning various religions and cult beliefs, and we were redesigned to be more fitting to the needs of having spirit that is open and willing to lifelong friend. So basically having a lifelong friend came into play within the last like 20 years, as well as newly developed conjuring based on the core principles of previous written conjurings or conjurations, but are written with the act of spirit keeping as a lifestyle in mind, whereas custom conjurations are written specifically by Magnolia and Ash for specific entities and for the purpose of matching a spirit to a potential keeper based on the similarity and closeness of the spirit and keeper's energy signatures. So they match kind of like what would be good for you or what you're looking for. From the Victorian period up until the last 20 years, the conjurations developed were often for specific tasks, as well as interviews for research, and those in the magic world, the replacement of living familiars for spirit familiars, would, well, I don't know what that word is supposed to be, could more greatly educate them on the wisdom of the past. Those conjured by companies or companions are not bound in the way you see today. Most of them were attached, not bound. And those who were bounded or bound did not have the type of binding you see today, which offers the ability of cloaking, bridging, charging, security, etc. As stated before, not all who conjure spirits practice magic, as many were restricted from practicing magic at all, or were restricted to practicing magic that exist within their own belief system. The development of conjurations from different races of spirits developed in various religious regions, and there was not one set council of conjurers through which conjurations could be shared, as later began to develop in the late 20th century. Most worked with a specific race of spirit, as few races of spirits, and developed their skills with one from progressing to another. The expansion of the collective spirit conjuring, specifically for spirit companions as friends and daily live-in participants, would not happen until the end of the 20th century, when the ability to share information quickly and efficiently was introduced. Prior to the information age, the only way to communicate was through written word or telegraph, and the response sometimes were months, even years. Sometimes, and therefore the ability to achieve a collective repertoire was not only impossible, but daunting to even attempt. With the introduction of the information age and ability to share information with greater success in actual receipt of the request or sent items, the ability to grow a personal library was a foundation of modern day keeping. The spirits keeping community has also never been in the greater numbers as it is today. The number of those who participate in spirit keeping as day to day friends and companions in the capacity as it is at this point the wide range of races of spirits, cross cultures, and religions together were less than 500 people worldwide 15 years ago. The community, embracing a non religious standard open to multiple creatures and multiple religious sources, with the clear intent of keeping spirits as friends for daily life exchange and mutual enjoyment, is something unprecedented in the history of the world. Now, here they get into keeping spirits of different creatures. Um, it's definitely a different way of looking at things. Um, like I said, even though I've been involved in witchcraft for since I was 16, um, so 30 years ago, I've never really thought about spirit keepers. I didn't know there were. I mean, I like I said, I have jewelry that has spirits bound to them. Um, I didn't know it was like a real thing. Like not that it wasn't a real thing, like it was a community thing. You know what I mean? So when I found this, it was all very, very interesting to me. Um, and like I said, Little Red and I was talking yesterday, and so I was like, all right, well, if you're interested, I'll start talking about it tomorrow. um, so keeping spirits of creatures, calling upon the spirits of powerful creature has been attributed largely in the beginning of the Renaissance era, through isolated cases could very well have existed prior. As in ancient times, these beings still existed, roamed the earth, and their participation and contribution to the populace at that time were in living form. They were not called upon to act in spirit, but were sought after and called upon to import wisdom, power, justice, etc. into living form. The active calling upon of fae, dragons, elves, gargoyles, and such were largely only after mass dwindling of numbers or extinction in the stories of the contribution of these entities, when alive, were still being passed from generation to generation. And people wanted the spirits of those entities to come and help them when they were in need of something they could provide. However, they were not considered day to day friends. They were not considered to be guides and support. During specific times, yes, but not on a day to day basis. Typically, day to day friends, they were considered to be, oh, wait. Typically, a suitable offering would be made, and then one would make the request to the spirit desired, and the interaction between person and spirit would be on a case by case basis. Again, as the luxury of spare time and hobby were not known to those in ancient times in the great volume as it is known to all of us today, especially now. We have a lot of time. Um, as with most of the history of spirit summoning, the act of calling upon the spirits of these races of beings were done so by spoken and not written word. In large part, the act of summoning the spirits were short, small conjurations which simply requested the presence of a specific type of spirit for a specific act. It was not to call the spirit to the part of daily life, but to assist in a specific task related to that spirit's specific range of power or influence in the earthen realm. In much of its recorded history of spirit summoning, the spirits are called for a specific purpose, with the exception largely being spiritual guides. Through some historians argued the guides were not spirits, but actual living entities. However, the result of using specific recorded writings predating the Victorian era from calling upon a guide have produced spirits for some, which includes writing of ancient times. Hey, Freaky Geek, how you doing, hon? So, binding a spirit to a vessel. Jewelry is now a popular vessel as the plentiful manufacturing of many little amulets, pendants, rings, charms, etc. are readily available in a post-industrial modern world. Oh, that's okay. That's all right, Freaky Geek. There goes my nut. There goes my nuts. There goes my chat going nuts. No problem. That's no problem whatsoever. I don't know who's here anymore. I think they all got bored of me talking. Um, so most people back in the day did not have a lot of money for decorative pieces like jewelry or having a lifestyle where they could wear jewelry without possibility of loss or damage. They would use something they already had or was readily found in nature around them, the most common natural vessels being wood or stone. So Magnolia and Ash, they're the ones that they own the site, obviously, but they're the ones that they've practiced today. Instead of basically what spirit keeping is, instead of calling upon people or not people, but spirits or whatever it is you call upon dragons. Like I have a dragon that I call upon when I get really nervous that something is either going to happen or is if I'm nervous about spirits being around that I just don't want being around. Right at the second, I'll call him and he'll circle and lay down around the hotel. Or if I'm out in the camper. Guide, like a spirit guide, yeah, exactly. Instead of calling them upon for the request, talking about being in your life day to day basis, on a day to day basis as a familiar, or just living with spirit on a day to day basis and being a friend with them. You know what I mean? Not just calling them. That's okay. Not just calling them for specific tasks. And that's what they teach you. That's what spirit keeping is. There's the community or the companion. I think that's what it was, if I remember right. Um, Let me make sure I got that right. Yeah. Yeah, the companion or the community, which companion spirit keepers are those they keep their spirit family small, where the community's spirit keeper has a vast variety. And it was just something new that I had found. I don't even know what I was. Oh, I think I would. What I was searching for was gargoyles, because I was gonna do a whole episode about gargoyles and where they came from, where they got their start, how they became like protectors today. Like I love gargoyles. A lot of people don't. They think they're scary, but they're not. They're just protectors, and they're freaking awesome to me. Um, and stuff like that. And then I started reading about this, and I'm like, this is weird. Not weird, but just something as long as I've been in the occult and into witchcraft and that, I've never heard of, I guess I've heard of it, but just in a different way. You know what I mean? Like, I think of my guides all as one as a collective, I guess. I know there's different ones that I have. Yes, actually. Well, it's very weird how gargoyles got their start. Um, but it wasn't for, they started out as basically rain spouts. Um, and also, yeah, like you said, by the church, yes, because they wanted to do the whole fear thing. You know, ooh, we better get inside. There's a gargoyle looking at us. That type of thing. Here we go. Yeah, I love when I spam myself. So like you can, like they have different spirits for different situations. Like, obviously there's, spirits for different situations or guides for different situations, but like astral connection, balance, charm, persuasion, confidence, creativity, discover, earth and grounding, fun adventure, good luck. I mean, all types of different ones, which is really cool because it is like an encyclopedia. Spirits for willpower, you know, pixies. And then you go, like, if you put it on pixies, you want to find out about pixies. And they tell you they are spirits from England that are usually inhabited by the countries or counties of Somerset, Devon, and Cornwall. They're usually no bigger than human hand with red hair and green eyes. When fairies first came to England, the pixies waged war against them, scared the fairies would take over their homeland. Over time, they had become sort of their differences and typically do not commingle. They are high spirited and can bring great prosperity and good luck to those they live with. So if somebody wanted to be spirit bound, a spirit keeper of a pixie, they would come here and figure out, if that's really what they want. And yeah, associations can be used to create closer connection with the entity by recognizing their associations with the earth. Associations, apparently I'm not allowed to say that, and universe can use any combination of these tools to create treats, rituals, and bonding exercise between you. You can purchase candles, incense, cones, oils, sprays, etc., scented with the scent, herb, and foliage they are associated with. You can purchase statuary, painting, prints, textile, etc., with color, animal, or foliage they are associated with, and keep them in your home where the entity will see them. So, it has all the associations to it. Welcome back, Eli. So, weekday, their favorite weekday is Thursday. Their favorite planet is Uranus. Their month is March. Gemstones, they love crazy lace agate. Colors, dark pink. Foliage, so you would bring those into your home to, as, an offering type thing. And then methods of connecting. I mean, they have the whole thing. Like, it's pretty freaking cool to me. Methods of connecting, time spent closely with the spirit for the first 30 days of coming to the keeper's home. Wonderful treats for pixies includes fresh milk, wheat breadcrumbs. Um, they can manifest as orbs, shades, pink to orange light streaks, sound of muffled chatter. I mean, this is really cool. Like when I get my printer back out of the camper after we have the meltdown and we can get to the camper, I'm gonna print this whole thing out just to have an encyclopedia of all these different things. I think it's really cool to study and really, I mean, I know some about all. Let's put it that way. Like I know a little what I need to know, what helps me grow as on my path. Um, so I mean, it's really cool to me. You never, I mean, when you're on, like I have a gin in one of my rings. Like I said, I have a fairy queen, a gin, um, a half man, half goat, a water sprite. I'm trying to think, and I think that might be it. Um, but stuff like that, it's really freaking cool to me. And I never thought about, until I did this research and everything. I was going through different researches, and instead of calling them when I need them, to having them here on a day-to-day basis, which I live with shadow people. Why can't I live with fairies? You know, or whatever, you know. I guess I never thought about that being on a day-to-day basis with something. And it's pretty cool. I mean, I live with my spirit guides day to day, so I don't know why my brain don't. I know they're there at all times because they like to let me know that. So who knows? I don't know. I just thought it was pretty cool. So yeah, if you want more information, go to creepyhollows.com. They have all this different information with things. Um, this person wrote 10 reasons why spirit keeping should be your new obsession. It says no matter what religion you follow, there is an element of mysticism that just leaves you wondering. Prayer, meditation,